Okay, so today I want to talk to you about Man and His Symbols. This is perhaps one of my favorite Jung books. I was about to say my favorite, but I think my favorite has to be the Red Book just because of how deep and mysterious and allegorical and poetic that book is. But again, not everyone's me, not everyone is very interested in obscure things that don't really make sense. This book, when it comes to Jung, is the end all be all, and I really urge you to pick this up if you haven't read anything by him or if you've read other stuff by him, because this is the most clear, concise, and layman's book that describes Jung. And the background for this book is that Jung basically did a bunch of interviews, and he was approached after these interviews because they were very successful, and they had really great numbers, and they wanted to write a book, and the book would be dedicated to people that weren't in the scientific community, who weren't exposed to Jung's ideas, more of a everyman's reader, or everyday reader, or just someone that doesn't have a psychological background. And basically Jung was like, I don't really think this is a good idea. I don't really want to do this. And he basically sat on this idea, and he started getting letters. He started hearing people saying like, thank you so much for those interviews. Your words really changed the way I thought about this. Your words really changed my life. And he began to ponder it more, but still he was hesitant. And then one day he had a dream, and in his dream he was speaking to an audience of like a million people, like a lot of people. And it wasn't the normal scientists that he was speaking to. It was average, everyday people. And this is what inspired him to pick up this book. So the structure of this book is not like anything else he's ever written. It's like the first 70, 80 pages are written by him, and then the rest of the book is written by his colleagues. But I really think this adds to the book because it's very hard to read Jung sometimes because he's so smart. And English isn't his first language, so everything that you read is either he wrote it in English or it was translated into English, so it doesn't really carry over. But I think it's a really good like melting pot of voices that come into this, and the ideas that are covered in this book range from dream analysis to the unconscious to the shadow to the anima animus to the individuation process. It basically has everything that you need to know about Jung and Jungian psychology as a whole, and it has a lot of really good information in it, and it's so simple. When you read Jung, you're trying to decipher a work of art. You're trying to decipher a poem. The symbolism, these symbols that he's calling upon, the allegories, the people that he's talking about, the individual circumstances. You're trying to wrap your head around all these things. In this book, they just tell you. There's no guesswork. There's no, reading this and then trying to recall something that you read earlier or trying to expand upon a very complex idea. Like, it's put very simply in this book. And I'll go through a few of the parts that stuck out with this book to me, especially the fact of dream analysis. So I've read a lot of Jung at this point, and I think this is one of the later ones I've read by him. And it's very weird because I should have just started with this book. But to me, I never really understood the importance of dream analysis. I never really understood why Jung hearkened on it so much. And I didn't really think it was a big part of his ideas, but it seemingly is the central part of his idea, because think about it like this. When you're in a relationship, it's always easier to have a third-party person give you advice, even if that person is the most dysfunctional person ever, because they can see the full picture. They can see everything going on around them. Every single, instance that you have, every time someone does something wrong to you, your emotions are clouding your judgment, and they're stopping you from making the greatest decision. Basically, your dreams are a third-party observer. Your dreams tell you how it is, and if you can analyze your dreams and get to the root of what it's trying to tell you, you have a really good psychic insight. You have something that if you run with, if you take one breadcrumb from the dream, you can have a complete transformation. And it's really cool the way that Jung breaks down his dreams. I think he said in this book he analyzed 80,000 dreams in his lifetime, and it's very impressive. And the greatest thing about Jung to me is that he took an individual approach to everyone. Every single one of his clients, he tried to understand through their eyes, because he liked to approach it in the manner that the individual is their own universe, and what works for someone is not going to work for someone else. And it's very different from what we see today in the medical industry. It's very different from what we see from even Freud as well. Like, Freud liked to classify people. He liked to be very matter of fact of things, but Jung was open to being wrong. Jung was open to different interpretations. He was open to understanding things at a just a sense level, not being able to put words to it. And through this, he left a really, really interesting legacy. But again, I'm just talking highly of Jung. The other ideas that I found very, very interesting were that of the shadow, that of the unconscious. Put very simply, I'll have to describe the unconscious first. The unconscious is, think of everything that you need for your day to day. Think of every piece of information that you need, from tying your shoe to driving a car to the responsibilities and roles that happen at your job and you have to keep in your mind. And you're working on this project, so you have to remember all these details. And then a year goes by, you're no longer working on that project and you don't remember the details like the back of your hand. What happened was that these ideas, these shreds of information went from the conscious mind to the unconscious mind. Your brain is like a filing cabinet, and these files get locked away, and they can slowly over time influence you. They can determine behaviors without you even knowing it. And this is why so many people struggle with confidence. This is why so many people struggle with insecurity, with appearances. Like, some of the most beautiful people look in the mirror and don't see the beautiful person that you see. And it's very weird, but like these things are all coming from our unconscious. They're all coming from things that happened to us when we were a child, things that happen to us that we don't even remember most of the time. And in some way it's making you hesitant. In some way it's making you fearful. And most of the time it's not even a big thing. Most of the time it's like your teacher didn't give you enough attention in first grade, or your parents didn't give you enough attention when you got an achievement. Like, it's usually something that small. It's usually something that you couldn't quite understand at the moment, and it's lingering and lingering and lingering and causing you issues today. And this is what goes into the next concept, which is the shadow. The shadow is, put very simply, is we all sacrifice to be part of society every single day. Every time you sacrifice a part of your authentic self, it creates resistance, it creates a shadow. The best way to summarize it is, what you suppress will be expressed. So if you have anger that isn't being expressed, if you have emotions that aren't being expressed, they're usually going to come out. They're usually going to leak out when you least expect it, when you lose control. Think of when you're in traffic and someone cuts you off. Are you really angry at the other person? Are you really angry for them inconveniencing you for 3 seconds? Or is it more an amalgamation of all the emotions that have been pent up for the past few days, past few weeks, past few years, maybe your entire life? Like, that's what that is. And it's getting to the bottom of these things. And this is what leads into the last thing I want to talk about, the individuation process. I feel like I've gone into a lot of details here, but I vastly oversimplified it, but this book is going to do a really good job of explaining these things. But the way to get around all these things, the way to come out on the other end of these things, is through the individuation process. This is the process of accepting your unconscious, accepting the things that are affecting you, taking responsibility for them, looking at them and seeing that they're not so bad. Not in this book, but in the Red Book, Jung has a scene where he goes to the figurative depths of hell and meets his darkness, meets his devil that's inside of him. And most people would say you have to reject the darkness inside of you, but it's accepting the darkness. It's accepting your capability for evil, your capability to be petty, your capability to be jealous. It's accepting these parts of your nature and directing them to something good. You know what I mean? Like, every single aggressive person, every single angry person, that fire could be used for something positive. That fire could be used for a project at the home, or some sort of work at the office, or something productive maybe in the gym, or like, you know what I mean? Like energy and emotion are the same thing, and the only difference is we can, like, the energy we have through our emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's happiness, we can direct it into different feelings. We can choose to accept different things. William James, the father of American psychology, said attitudes are more important than facts, meaning that the way you take it, the way you change it, the way you direct it. I don't know why the words aren't coming to me. I'm 10 minutes in. The way that you direct the energy is more important than what actually happens to you. So keep all these things in mind and understand that every day you can either get closer or further away from yourself. And the way to find out who you are is through analyzing yourself, is through looking at the things that are holding you back, looking at the things that have constantly bothered you and facing those things, because it means nothing for you to have a problem for years upon years upon years and you run away. You're going to have to face it sooner or later, and the sooner you face it, the easier it is. We build the demons up in our lives day after day after day. Every problem you have is a problem that you've been neglecting your entire life. Had you just fixed it the day it occurred, it would be nothing. But now it's the size of a hill. It's the size of a mountain. It's the size of something that seems insurmountable. But when we understand that all of our problems were created by ourselves, then we understand that we have the power to overcome them as well. I love you guys so much. Please pick up this book. I will link it in the description. Talk to you guys in the next one. Love you guys so much. Peace out.